Well, good morning, listeners. You are listening to Lament of Hope podcast, and I'm your host, Danielle Richardson. And I am very excited and just, it's been neat to connect with Rachel Hendrix. I was actually just talking to her before this as we were kind of just getting to know each other a little bit. And I knew her acting wise from her film October Baby, which came out quite a while ago, but she played the main character, Hannah. And that really stuck out to me, her performance, and was just very authentic and genuine. And I really related to she just was very an emotive and a very vulnerable character that I think I could just believe. And so her acting really impacted me in that film. And so when I started this podcast, I was thinking about, okay, well, what type of people would I like to, interview, get to know their stories? She was one of the people I thought of. And Rachel now does short films. She produces them. She acts in them. She collaborates with her husband with his company, Rising Act Films. And they actually have a short film that if you go on her Instagram, which I will link underneath this podcast episode, there is a short film called Breach that that she acted in and is something that is coming out shortly. And it's just from the trailer, a very compelling piece about postpartum depression and just the struggle that a lot of women relate to of the dark period after having a baby. And so, Rachel's a mom and a producer and actress, so she has a lot of experience in a lot of different fields. And so I'm very excited to connect with her. So, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and taking the time.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, Rachel, I want to ask you because on the website for the film company that you and your husband collaborate on, it's very compelling about it, talking about how you really want to use your filmmaking and your acting to advocate for things you believe in and ways you want to make a change with what you do. And um, what what kind of incentivized you to do that? Because I know for a lot of um, films, directors, I mean, they don't really talk so much. Some of them do, but they don't really talk so much about making a company because they want to change something or they want to bring
Mhm.
awareness to particular issues. Um, as beyond just really just like being creative and diving into different types of stories. So, why was that really important for you and your husband to do
Mhm.
that?
That's actually a twofold answer. He had a different experience than I did. Um, my experience was what I'll speak into that first. And it's kind of a funny story, actually, because the first project we did with Rising Act was actually a very silly concept. And it was a little bit like a commercial for this silly concept that could have and was meant to save lives. And it was this little gingerbread man that you would attach to the front of your vehicle and the dashboard to remind yourself that you either had a child or a pet in the back seat and not to forget them. So we were approached to basically create a really compelling commercial for a prototype that would be basically a nonprofit prototype. It was going to be distributed, worldwide, to help people. And it was right around the time that cars started including that in their, like, as a safety feature, the actual electronics of the cars. So we got it done, and within a year, it was rendered obsolete. I have to give my husband credit too, because he actually created, and this is his creative mind. He created a costume that was a life-size version of this gingerbread man, and he actually got in it and acted in the gingerbread man costume for all five of the commercials that we did and gave it his 100%. And I had such a blast producing that with him. They turned out pretty great. I mean, I think they were on our old website, but we've pulled them. We've pulled them since because we're a lot more serious now. But the pieces were really just a joy. We actually got to hire Atlanta local talent and work with full crews to shoot
Hmm.
as high end of a commercial as we could muster with the budget we had. And that was, in a weird way, like that was the flagship piece that sort of formed the idea that, okay, if we can make a prototype seem really like a cutesy little thing, have the power to save lives, what can we do when we're telling a story that actually is um, has the potential not just to be a PSA or a public service announcement about an idea, but
Hmm.
instead raising awareness about issues that are relevant into like the deepest part of what it means to be a human.
Hmm.
And that was, that commercial was a little over 5 years ago, and we've been operating since then, just growing and taking opportunities as we come to either work with nonprofits and NGOs directly or making films like Breach that deal with larger, less specific, less organization specific stories, but that are more broad cause stories that are dear to us that we think could have an impact and really change things. So that was kind of the first introduction for me was sort of going down a water slide and having a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Um, and Daniel's experience was that he saw Hotel Rwanda,
Oh yeah.
which was a film that was made, through the Hollywood studios, but their intention in the credits and their intention was truly to raise awareness about the issues that were happening at the time and even put information before the credits rolled to inform the public on how they could get involved. And our big dream, we are doing short films and commercials and documentaries now, but our big dream is to create, basically write feature films that all proceeds, all profits would go to either the cause itself or organizations that support those causes.
Hmm.
And and because films have such a potential to reach huge audiences,
Yeah.
um, that if we had stars attached and big directors attached and had household names, we could essentially pour funding into basically you just kind of creating an engine that would pour funding into these areas of humanitarian with humanitarian well not the word humanitarian is so philanthropic specific, but just help the human race if that I know it's a very broad thing to say.
No, no, yeah.
But
No, I was,
it's kind of the heart and the big mission is to we really do dream really big, and want to reach people in many, many different ways. So that's sort of the starting that was sort of the starting point for both of us. And it's been quite a journey of learning and growing and faking, make it, what is it they say, fake it till you make it, and we're making it up as we go, which is an
yeah.
Indiana Jones quote. So yeah, that's kind of our background there.
Is there a particular story that you haven't told yet, whether this would be a feature film or just a short film or a documentary that you really want to, that you haven't yet done?
Oh, there's so many, Danielle, so many. Mm, that's a great question. The answer is yes. Um, I think that right now my husband is actually working in Europe. He's in Amsterdam, traveling to Belgium, and they are working with a team that's sole purpose is to essentially find POWs.
Hmm.
Specifically, this organization works a lot with World War II POWs, and they work with underground radar. They're anthropologists, archaeologists, forensic pathologists who essentially make it their life's work to find the POWs, and essentially identify their remains and repatriate them to bring them home to their families
Mm.
and provide closure. And so he's been working with the nonprofit called History Flight for a long, probably for working relationship for them for the last 3 years. And this is the third part of a documentary that he is doing to build a story um, about their work, as well as putting the spotlight on what it's like for a family to finally get to have that repatriation ceremony slash
Mm.
funeral for their fallen relative and say goodbye. So it's a few different angles, and I think good stories really do bring in multiple voices. And so he's with the families of a particular um, group of men whose bomber went down in World War II, and they excavated the airplane in the 80s, and they are now doing kind of a walk, a memory walk to walk in the footsteps of the process of it going up and going down and being shot down in the
Mm.
war. And um, the long answer to your question, our dream would be to make a feature narrative film to accompany the documentary with actors and control and really tell the story about what History Flight truly does, and see it with Daniel's vision to really have an impact of really of a much larger proportion. Um, because it's documentaries are difficult to for people to get their eyes on.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that's true.
and if it's not that one, Daniel is not short on story ideas. And my dream would be to do a narrative on the work that the Mercy ships do in Africa. And they launched Global Mercy a little over a year and a half ago, which is their second hospital ship. And we actually got to spend some time in Senegal when the Mercy ships were docked, and we got to interview doctors and spend time and get to know them for about 4 or 5 days, and came back with our hearts just broken and full at the same time
Mm.
by the sacrifices that everyone makes, and to be doing that work. And our dream would be to tell the story of um, what actually happens on these ships, from the ones doing the laundry to cleaning the pool to operating in the operating rooms, and to the teachers who are teaching the kids who's live on the ship because their dads are surgeons, to the communities that are served, the lives that are saved. And my dream would be to do a film or a 6 episode series on what Mercy Ships does. So that's my big goal. But it's one thing at a time, and opportunities present themselves, and we kind of jump on board when we can. Um, that's big picture. That's big vision for us. And it's not out of reach. It's just a matter of the right things kind of falling in place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, I have found my husband and I have seen several independent films, like not collaborated with a really big studio, and they have been some of the most compelling things I have ever watched. One recently was on the Armenian genocide, which was done by a very small um, Armenian independent film company, and it was done with a specific type of cartoon. I don't remember what it's called, but it was so compelling. But it was because it was such a small studio, it was not something that could hit theaters, or things like that. It was something that you kind of had to go around a lot of corners to find a way to watch it. And I find that just so sad that there's just not really an outlet for that, and it takes a much more um a very persistent and you have to search for it, you have to want to see it, and you have to put the work in to find the place or travel to
Hmm.
wherever the film is showing. Um, do you, I mean, because I know you guys were talking about eventually wanting like really well-known directors and actors and things so that they can kind of get out there more. Um, is that really the only way for independent films or independent filmmaking studios to really get out there, you think? Or is there another means by which you think independent films can be seen by more people? Or does it have
Such a
to be
good
connected
question.
to somebody?
Well, there's no algorithm, right? But there are things that
Yeah.
do give something a more marketable value. And there's no way around that. Um, if a name is attached to something, it's a lot easier to get an investor to think his ROI will be less, would be more likely. But again, you can attach all the right people and have all the funding in the world, and the film still bomb. You can have no named
Yeah.
actors and have a fantastic script and a beautiful story and a visionary who can really put it out there, and then lightning in a bottle, and someone is seeing it, the right person sees it at the festival, and then A24 all of a sudden is distributing it, there's such a game, there's such a luck, and it's like winning the lottery. You don't know
Hmm.
how to get that special sauce, right? That's going to get a film out there and seen. And even when they're very deserving of accolades and beautiful pieces of work, some of my favorite films, um, I mention them to people in the industry, and they are all like, they don't, a lot of them don't even know, haven't even heard of them.
Hmm.
Um, and with independent film, which has been my, you know, that's where I've lived. I was a lot in the faith and family and TV movie of the week market for a while, which was so good to me. And I had a really, really, I hate to use the word luck. I don't think I really even subscribe to the idea of luck. I need better terminology, but some things just happen by chance. Some things just happen, and it isn't um, anything that anybody did. And I think
Hmm.
you can go with all the right channels and all the right festivals and do everything to make a beautiful piece of work. And at the end of it, letting it go, like, keeping your hands open and saying, I did the work, I gave my best.
Yeah.
Um, that's it has been my experience of really accepting the losses, is knowing I did everything I could to make something excellent, and everything else is out of my hands. Now, there is a business, and there's a business model that does work. I see it in the Hollywood engine. They they have mastered it because they have the studios behind them with billions of dollars, that can be risked. So when there's a loss, the loss can be absorbed, um, because they have enough resources and capital to cover that. You can't do that much in independent film when you're putting everything you can into a piece that's, into a film that's $3 million or $1 million. Or let's be honest, I've worked on a lot of films here in Georgia that are under 500, shot for under $500,000, which generally isn't even producing a livable wage for the crew.
Hmm.
The above the line team members, might walk away with a decent paycheck, but it's comparable to something you get from having a business degree. Um, so attaching a name does give you a little bit more of an edge up. more with your talent and your director being a little bit, since it's so behind the scenes, that's not something investors are necessarily looking as much at. But is it marketable? Is the question they're going to ask. Is it marketable by having an attached name in the market that they're serving? So a film really needs to know what it is, and it needs to have actors that, um, you know, in my opinion, regardless of a name, regardless of status or Instagram followers or how many, yeah, TikTok subscribers. It's first and foremost an art form. Well, it's a business. It's a business. And you're dealing with a lot of risk.
Yeah.
So I think the short answer to that is, through my experience and my understanding, and I am by no means an expert in this area, I've just seen so much of it from my point of view. Not being a named actor, really, at some point after October Baby came out, I could work pretty consistently from the coattails of that film, from writing the coattails of that film. And I
Mm.
did work pretty consistently, and I'm so grateful for that. But that does have a time limit. And other than my what I've seen and experienced, again, not an expert, there just isn't a tried and true formula. So that's my kind of long answer.
No, I mean I've experienced that just as a content creator on the other end. I mean, there's just not, some places, some podcasts or some short films go viral in 24 hours and then others, maybe they've been on the platform for 4 or 5 years and then they
Yeah.
finally, get some traction. I think similar to when I was just reading the bio for your company, it's very much, you've got to be passionate about it and love it so that you can keep pursuing it even if you never get the amount of followers or whatever it is, because what matters is why you're doing it.
Mhm.
So when you started acting and you're talking about riding the coattails of October Baby, because that was more well known, especially in the faith community, um, did you ever dream of becoming did you want to become like an A-list actor eventually, or were you happy with the direction your life took, where it became more producing and acting in smaller known films? Or did you really want to
Mhm.
climb to the top when you were younger?
I don't think I don't think it was in my mind that that was ever a possibility.
Hmm.
But I also didn't think it was in my mind that I would ever have an opportunity to be an actor in a film. It wasn't something I could ever foresee. Um, I've never really been a look to the future kind of person.
Hmm.
I I tend to, the only time I really look to the future is when I get in kind of a fearful place, or, start awfulizing, or getting a kind of afraid of what's out of reach or out of my control. So I'm certainly not perfect in that way. But when I was younger, I really liked working as an act. I just really liked working in acting work. I loved, um, being in class. I loved growing my craft, and it was hard and it was weird. Such a weird job. Um, but it was the most I had ever felt like seated in what I'm supposed to be doing, who
Hmm.
I am supposed to be, and in terms of like work. But the output felt so artistically satisfying for me, um, that when I would lose control, it would be a good thing. It was like almost when you get immersed in a character and you lose, kind of you don't know where you were because you just had such a great take. You're like, did I even get my lines right? And there's such an outward expression of that inner practice that you're not even really privy to. You're just in it. You're the vessel.
Mm,
And it's similar with dance. It's really similar with dance. I've heard dancers sort of describe being the vessel in which the art flows. And I sense that I've since also used that in my language of describing what it's like to really immerse myself in a character that is it's very life-giving. Um, and I just wanted to work. I just I wanted to keep doing that, whatever it was. The smaller roles and the things that do come through with how weird the industry got with the strikes and with the COVID and the vaccine mandates. And me, I had a baby during COVID, and I didn't experience a lot of community. I was
mm,
very isolated. I was very isolated, and your work suffers until you're able to finally get out of that and use that suffering to, fuel your art. I don't mean to be melancholic with that, but that's been my process. That I had to go through darker things to find then the self-expression to say what I needed to say in whatever medium made itself available to me, which has been acting and now writing and directing. And in
mm,
school, I actually most of my work was in the fine arts. So I don't know if I would have ever wanted to be famous. I do not like an invasive I don't like invasive looks. I don't like people to really um I think that I would have likely been the kind of person that would have shielded myself from an experience of fame.
mm.
I guess if I wanted it to happen, it would have to happen in the background. Who knows though? Maybe I would have stepped into that role really well. Or maybe would have stepped into it and just destroyed myself. I have no idea. But that wasn't my journey. I just really wanted to work as an actor. I wanted to have a series. I wanted to work in episodic. I wanted to work in independent film and
Mm.
keep going with it. I still do. That dream is there. It's very alive, and it informs the work that I am doing now, I
Yeah.
think.
Was there a character you've played that you found very unlike who you are? Like I was thinking with Hannah from October Baby, she was very sensitive, not in a bad way as you would say it, but she was very emotive and easily um touched by the smallest things and very brave. Um, but also like for Breach, when you're talking about a very depressed mother and obviously you've had a baby and have experienced pregnancy, like was there ever a character that you thought either incapable of playing because you didn't relate at all to what they were like, or was there a character that you just didn't, no matter how hard you tried, felt like you represented them the way you wanted them to?
Mhm. I can't I can't say, I mean, every role is different. But it
Yeah.
is a common experience to be a bit typecast, um, and continue to play the same kinds of girl next door roles, the doting wife or the encouraging mother, and sort of like these female trope characters that are written a lot by they're trying to be they're trying to just be as I don't know, palatable to an audience as possible.
Hmm.
But they're really lacking in a lot of ways, like the depths and complexities of what it truly means to be a woman in this world. And so I did play a lot of roles where I think I was frustrated by this simplicity. and really a lack of direction
Hmm.
from the team to bring anything out other than what was on the page. I just didn't have um, the I don't know, the source material needs to kind of have a depth and richness to it in order to play. So if it wasn't on the page, I would try very hard to bring a variation and dynamic range to very simply written women. And I think other women actors would agree with me, or female actors would say that that has been their experience as well. And it is changing. Um, so in that way, you aren't really playing versions of yourself when you're able to get into the nitty-gritty and invent and create.
Hmm.
But there have been roles where I had to really fight the instinct to do what I would do and instead do the work to break away from my instincts and say, well, what would she do? Get into get into their head a little
Hmm.
bit more, and have fun kind of playing there. But anytime you get a chance to do that, it's fun. So.
No, that's definitely true. I do you think being a woman in Hollywood or see, I say Hollywood, but I mean you're in the film industry, but I wouldn't say Hollywood specific exactly, but um do you think being a woman in the film industry is something that you're proud of in the sense of you think women con are contributing well to it and are being able to express themselves well through filmmaking? Or you know, I know a lot of actors and um different thought leaders who have said, you know, film industry is still very male dominated, and so they don't think enough women are directing or receiving awards for their work. Um, what is kind of your take on that? Do you think that the film industry has become more um, open to females and represents them well in their work, or do you think that that's still something that is slow to happen?
My experience is my experience. And where I get a little, there's a little bit of a snag in kind of my answer there because I've had my experience and then other women have had theirs. And to speak over of the overall experience of 50% of humankind is something that I am very careful to not do with any certitude, but just to speak from where I have, you know, where I have come from with that. And there's a big part of me that I don't know with the mistreatment of women, the incredibly um, destructive beauty standards, the mental health of Hollywood in general, um, as an engine that has definitely is changing in opportunities for women. And we are seeing more female directors. We're seeing more representation in different age groups, different demographics, different races, different um, gender stereotypes. I think that the changes are positive. I think if we're not careful, we're going to swing really far in one direction of giving women, and I think this does have to happen a lot of times when change is brought into the fold.
Hmm.
I will, I think if we swing too far with the pendulum of only then saying this job goes to a minority or a woman, then you're discrediting the ability of a woman's talent to stand neck and neck with a man's talent.
Yeah.
And I would like to get the job because I'm worthy of the job.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe that would couldn't have happened because of the climate around opportunity for women in the industry, specifically in the above the line areas, directing, cinematography. Women have definitely been in the producerial world. I think they really are strong there. I just don't know. I don't know enough about what happens other than what I'm receiving from the media, which we all know is not a great um,
Yeah.
source of truth. And my hope is that I would continue getting opportunities because of what I'm able to do. But I am grateful that women are now provided opportunities that they weren't before because they've been fighting for it and standing up for themselves, where it's normally a tendency to go quiet or fold. But that's not my personality at all. Going quiet or folding. There's a lot I don't know, and I am not the director to hire for some things, and I am definitely the director to hire for others. So I think female voices need to be heard, and I'm excited about more opportunity for that.
Yeah.
But I want to be given the credit because I earned it and be given the opportunity because I earned it, not just because I'm a woman. Just like I don't want it to be taken away because I'm a woman and
Yeah.
not be credited because of that, or because I'm not this enough or that enough in the ridiculous beauty standards that we all feel so systematically embedded in us as young women.
Hmm.
But yeah, we are. It's changing, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've been I mean, there's been some pretty powerful films that women have directed that I think are amazing. I mean, but I love it. Like you said, not because it was a woman, I would have liked it if a man did it too, but because
Mhm.
it was very good. Um, but I did want to ask you, and this is something I feel like it's interesting because Instagram, Facebook, social media, films, they really press, be authentic, be yourself. Talk about the problems you have. But women definitely have different problems than men do. And again, I'm going to bring up breach because that stuck out to me so much. Um, Men don't often struggle. Like pregnancy for a woman is a life-changing event. It's a beautiful event, but it can be a very hard event too. Like those things can go together. And I feel like it's painted as one or the other, right? Really beautiful and idyllic, or really terrible and awful. And um, I don't see a lot of films lately that embrace the problem that each gender has. Like men have their own really hard problems, and women have their own really hard problems. And I think more and more people crave to be able to identify with that in film. See something where it's like, yes, that's me. That's what I go through. That's what I get. And I do think that there are not as many films where you feel that deep connection because it's just real. It's real life. Um, and so I wanted to ask you, for you as a woman, I mean, obviously breach, talking about postpartum depression, but I mean, do you feel that there are more subjects that we could explore that, I mean, some people would say, it's offensive to or stereotypical to bring up different things that women face. But just the other day, I was talking to a friend and we were crying over something. Um, and I was just like, people would probably make fun of us that we're crying right now because, films don't like to show women always like crying over silly things or whatever because that's not, that's offensive in some way. But I mean, my experience is, and I don't think it's bad. Women are just very tender-hearted, and so they easily cry, whether they're happy or sad or whatever. And I don't think it's bad to show that or offensive. Um, but a lot of times, you might see in film a very hard woman who's a very strong woman, um, who isn't very emotional. And I don't think it's wrong or makes her less strong to be emotional. I think that can
Mhm.
be a strength. And so I just wondered for you as a woman, especially acting and so forth, do you feel like there are more topics that would actually benefit women, audience members, by watching that would relate more to them than there are
Mhm.
right now?
Would the purpose be for women to watch something that they're relating to, or would the purpose be to have men understand that side of a woman better? Because I think
It
really
could be
knowing
either. Yeah.
either, okay. I think really knowing, you know, I'll go back to something you said. You see a woman in a film a lot of times, if she's this strong female protagonist, she oftentimes in the films that I've seen, when we see her break or break down or have these moments where that tough outer shell is cracked, you can almost like you're like holding your breath the whole time. I don't know if you've experienced this, but when they finally do have a moment, you're like, okay, I can breathe now because I can finally relate to this woman. I can
Yes.
finally see myself in her.
Yes.
Um,
That's
because
true.
you can watch a strong female protagonist oftentimes be written with her masculinity front and center more than her femininity. Although it's a bit of a confusing juxtaposition because a lot of times they're in the makeup chair and the hair chair and they're getting top to bottom clothes tailored, everything to enhance their femininity and to really bring out their beauty, yet they're performing like they are men. And this is my analysis. Like
Wow.
I have
Yeah.
never even
True.
used, I've never said this out loud before because I internalize a lot of what I'm thinking, but it seems to me how when that is on screen, it is a very interesting and compelling juxtaposition to see this beautiful feminine thing really front and center, speaking with the way she's talking to the guys, because oftentimes she's going to be surrounded by men,
Hmm.
not women. She's going to be having a problem that is most often dealt with by a man who could have taken her job. It could be a male job too, but she's stronger for it. She's a better whatever the work is. Three of these three very specific films come to mind right now when I'm talking about this sort of female archetype that is the strong female protagonist. And then again, of course, when the feminine is like the tough outer shell or the controlled, articulate dialogue, the strong, authoritative, just masculine forward, which a lot of women to survive have to do this in the workplace. Um, that's the representation that we get. That's the representation that will also sell the tickets to the men who come to see it in the theaters. Because when I was doing October
Hmm.
Baby, I remember talking a lot in our PR tour about how difficult it was for a film with a strong female lead protagonist to make its money back, and how few of them out of the top 100 highest grossing box office films, the top 100, only 12 had strong female lead protagonists. So 12 out of 100. It just wasn't common in 2012. It's way more common now, but our numbers only increased to about 25%. So what's interesting to me is that it's a lot easier because we've seen it our whole lives for a female to sit in an audience, sit in a theater chair and watch a strong male protagonist on screen have a problem and still relate to him. Still feel like, yeah, we've been on that journey. Like we can understand what you're going through because women experience, and I'm not saying men don't, I'm a woman, so I can only speak from
Yeah.
being a woman. But women experience so much of the wide range of both the feminine and the masculine and how we have to live our lives in our current state
Hmm.
of affairs in the world. To be the strong businesswoman, to be the mother, to be the wife, to try to maintain um, a sense of beauty and belonging and to be true to who we are, there's a constant battle for our feminine heart. So it's easy to see a man on screen and see him having male problems. And every once in a while, when the protagonist, the hero, chooses to do the right thing and, the climax, and then the film is in the third act and we don't know what's going to happen, but then it does. It's usually because he leaned into something that we also, as a woman, can relate to. It's a lot more difficult for a man to watch a female protagonist, to sit in the theater seat, to pay for a ticket, and watch a woman having solely female problems on screen. And I am saying that without backing it up statistically because I can't remember the numbers. But when you do the research, you can find out when you have ticket sales towards a particular film. I think there's a way, and they tracked metrics on if the seats were filled by males or females. I don't know how accurate that is, but we were using some statistics that I don't remember to talk about the difficulties of males feeling represented when they watch a female on screen versus females feeling represented when they watch men. So I don't really know what that is in terms of like a psychological breakdown. I find it very interesting. And I would love to have the numbers to really back what I'm saying with fact because I don't like to say things that I can't do that with. So I'm going to do some more research on my end to try to get that right. But it seems to me that all of that has the potential to really, that female voices, back to what you were saying, and female-centric problems that encapsulate the female experience that a male can't relate to is an area that is lacking in the films that have been created, the films we have access to, and there is a ripe soil for it.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Yeah.
think that even postpartum mental health, which is an area that I was very curious about myself in my postpartum experience. And I didn't experience any sort of mental health issues in a clinical sense. Like I wasn't diagnosed with anything, nor did I feel that I needed, support, medical support in that area. I really needed community. I needed my mom. I needed other women. I was just in it, and came out on the other side really stronger for it, and survived a very difficult time because it is extremely difficult in the fourth, they call it the fourth trimester, which is when you bring baby home and kind of
Yeah.
adjust to all of that. And what my experience was more just like feeling out of control, feeling like when I didn't have control over what he was doing or I didn't understand it, I started feeling really like I got to get that control back. So it would manifest in anger or just feeling rage, or just like random stuff would flood me. And I'm like, why am I so mad? Like, what is going on?
Hmm.
And it could calm myself and really get regulated in sort of self-soothing, self-talking. Um, and found out how common that was when I started doing more research on what goes on when trauma from your life or your past wounds starts to sort of manifest in the postpartum period because it's one of the most difficult things you go through. There are traumatic events and traumas that get written on us that can sort of seep through when you're
Yeah.
in such a vulnerable and like physically vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable state. So I had some old, kind of suppressed things that were working themselves out in my postpartum period. And I had not seen a lot of representation of that in film. I had seen some films that were, they were more cautionary tales of women who had struggled with postpartum mental health, specifically depression, and ended up having a really, really, yeah, a really terrible ending. And I
Hmm.
didn't want to make anything that felt like I needed to go like be cleansed of this experience for the next 3 days. I wanted to share an authentic story about what goes on in a 5 minute period with a woman who's experiencing the highest high and the lowest lows all happening at one time. Um, and explore how dark that can be,
Yeah.
um, and how not alone, she was in that. And to me, that is a uniquely female experience, um, because you carry this child in your body and your body is the food source. And if you're able to nurse, and if you're not able to nurse or you don't want to nurse and you choose a different route, still having you are typically as the woman um, responsible for feeding your child and keeping
Yeah.
them alive. Most of the time, it is going to sort of lean on you heavily, even with a very involved partner. And I had a very involved husband, and um, still felt incredibly overwhelmed and incredibly out of control and incredibly in love and just so much joy at the same time. And I don't think a lot of men, if I can think of one, if you know one, love to meet him. Don't know one who can say, oh, yeah, that was also my experience. Not to say that men don't also have a slew of mental health issues when a baby's brought into the home. There are documented cases of mental health also affecting the partner and the father. And it's climbing too for men.
Hmm.
So postpartum mental health is not strictly a female issue, but the way it was written in Breach was for my vision and my storytelling's purposes strictly a female-centric story. So much so that we don't ever show my partner's face. He's he's just a body in the room, which is oftentimes how it can feel. So um, I hope that more stories are brought forth that are uniquely female. I enjoy them both. I like all kinds of storytelling. But as a
Yeah.
woman, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I get to stand in this place and do what we get to do, and lend my voice to it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, I think it's just I love films that really explore the human experience, and I think more and more films that are doing that are the ones that don't get as much credit or aren't out there as much. It takes a while to find them, but when you watch them, they're so compelling. Um, because they're saying something about humanity, so it's always going to strike your heart a lot harder, I think, than something else.
Mhm.
But, I did want to ask you, Rachel, when um, I think one thing that always inspires me about women who are pursuing their passions and also having children, because I don't have kids yet. It's something that frightens me a little bit, honestly, because I have passions and, in the Christian community, I grew up very much with you either you give up all your passions and become a mother, or you don't become a mother and you pursue your career, but that's not good. So you probably should just, have kids and lots of kids. Um, and then as I've gotten older and I've talked with other people, and even have met some Christian women who have a career or pursue a passion while at the same time having a child and seeing that there is a possibility of doing both.
Mhm.
Um, I see you as a mom who loves your son very clearly, but at the same time, you're still pursuing what you love, and you love both of them. And obviously, I don't want to say equally because I'm sure, your son matters a ton to you. So, but,
Mhm.
um, like, what advice can you give to young creators or young filmmakers, young actresses, young dreamers who really have something they want to pursue and they perhaps also want to have a family, but they're afraid of either messing up because they'll give too much attention to one or the other, or um, they're just afraid it's not possible to do both, and so they'll have to give up one.
You want the short answer or the long answer?
I
Because I have a
guess,
lot of thoughts on that, and I don't want to. I'm happy to share my long answer, but I don't know, if short and sweet might be more effective. I don't have the all the answers, but I have my opinions. What do you think? Do you want the short or
well,
the long?
I mean, I guess how you did it, because how you kind of reconciled it in your mind.
Hmm. I will say there is no formula. And if there is one, somebody please send me a message, rachelahendricks@gmail.com, and please tell me what it is. Um, I I think I was just talking to my husband about this a few days ago that I thought by now I would have figured out how to have a more work and baby balance. Um, and I don't think that really is a thing where it's about balance because so much of the organic nature of just being a mom and being involved in the film industry, which is sort of so fickle and so inconsistent, and it's really, really busy sometimes, and it's really slow other times. Um, Especially when you're just trying to finish a project or when you're in production. All areas can be time consuming, but I don't know if I have figured out a formula. I'm not a very regimented person. I love ritual and like tradition and practice of applying things that are for my betterment, but habits and habit forming is an area that I'm learning a little bit more about. And I think that would serve me well if I could get on the habit train and learn how to develop great habits and like let the bad ones die. I think I would be better for it, as would every mother. Um, I'm aware of tendencies for escape to go to sort of just get out of your head for a little while and get that bit of reprieve after a really long day, um, that a really long, hard day. And I would just say the biggest, my biggest encouragement to a mother or someone who is in this industry and is nervous about having a child, if you have the capacity to love a partner, you have if you have the capacity to love a partner and you're thinking about having a child, you're not going to regret it. Like it already takes sacrifice and it takes of oneself to enter into a partnership and really love well.
Hmm.
Um, so choosing that is the first step, I think. And I'm not speaking against people who are, wanting to be mothers and don't have a partner. Um, I can't imagine or fathom that. That's a very brave. a very brave act, a very brave choice. It's not been my road. So I don't want to speak into somebody who, wanting to become a parent who doesn't have a partner to sort of share that load.
Yeah.
I can't, I know that there are single moms and single dads, and I don't want to speak into that or pretend I could even imagine what that would be like. I'm going to speak from my experience as a wife and a mother, because my husband does help bear the the bear the weight of what it is to have a child, bring a
Mm.
child into the world. And I couldn't, I don't know what my life would look like without that from him. We parent together. We co-parent fully in our home. When I'm working, he does his work from home and will be with our son if we're not, taking him to a little play school or doing his. He goes to a daycare 3 days a week for me to work with the production company. So I can't, I couldn't have imagined it looking the way that it looks now because you
Mm.
figure it out. You figure out what works for you and your family. And you can't, it's hard to do it alone. Um, but
Yeah.
I would say, have your babies and work if you want to work. And if you're really good at work and you love it and you find out that you just want to be at home with your babies, that's fine too. Because that might happen. You might go, you know what?
Yeah.
I thought I wanted this. But really, can I just give them all of me right now? I'm tempted to do that a lot of times, but then um, I remember that I am called to seasons of giving and sacrificing, and they do come to an end sometimes. And I just happen to be in both worlds simultaneously. And the great thing about having a child, and I'll finish with this, or having children is that you have more of a permission. You give yourself more of a permission to say no to anything that is not life-giving.
Mm.
And it really helps to see through that lens. I I find that my no's are thought out, they're intentional, and typically it's because they're going to take me away from my son. And it really has to be worth that to me. So that's a
Mm.
benefit. It's like you don't have to be afraid of saying no or missing out on an opportunity because there's nothing better than saying no to something so that you can say yes to, being there for your child and knowing, when that is, when that distinction needs to happen. So,
Yeah. Well, Rachel, I mean, I want to be respectful of your time, so I it's been a gift to hear you and to hear a female perspective, but also you have such a um at least from talking with you, such a balanced perspective and um I really do hope that more of the films that you and your husband collaborate on will be able to get out there more and that people can see them. Um and it was a gift connecting with you, and I'm so excited to see what kind of creative work you're going to do in the future.
mhm. I've enjoyed talking with you and saying some of these things out loud just helps remind me of really, why I'm in this. And it's nice to talk to somebody who's listening. And also you just do a great job of engaging and listening to where the next question is going to come and or from where the next question is going to come. I mean, kind of extracting that from the conversation. So that for me has been a joy. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, thank you, Rachel, and God bless you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Okay. Hey, you too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.